Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of Sports Insight with your host Alamdar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you sports information from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is @of Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. And yes, from the world of PSL, Multan Sultans finally managed to win against Peshawar Zalmi to get their maiden PSL title on Thursday. And yes, from the world of NBA, LA Clippers definitely managed to win against Phoenix Suns to take the Game 3 with 106-92 victory. And yes, from the world of tennis, two-time champion Andy Murray makes a welcome comeback in Wimbledon single. And yes, from the world of Formula One, seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton starts negotiations with Mercedes over a new contract. And yes, those were the headlines, and what a great success for Multan Sultans. Yes, finally the PSL Season 6 has concluded, and not to forget that they scored 206 for 4 and they managed to win against Peshawar Zalmi by 47 runs. But anyways, to discuss more in-depth analysis from the world of cricket, we have with us Tanzil. Tanzil, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Great. So Tanzil, I'll start off with what a match is all I would say. Multan Sultan, they made their final mark, getting that trophy, making sure that they win. The score that they gave, 206, was pretty solid. And obviously Peshawar Zalmi did try their level best, but unfortunately could not. So what's your take on the overall match, specifically this final?
Yeah, so, like you say, 206, I think it's the highest score of a PSL final. So, obviously Multan broke that record. And then, given the fact that they had so much confidence and sort of momentum coming into the final, really, helped them as well. Peshawar, you have to say, obviously they played the eliminators. They got through to the final. You thought maybe they might have a bit more fight in them. But I think once you have runs on the board, especially in the final, you're already one step closer to the trophy. And, earlier in the tournament, we did see Peshawar get close to Islamabad's 240, which was an incredible match. So maybe, yesterday they could have taken that as some sort of momentum going forward, but unfortunately for them it wasn't to be. But fantastic game overall, I think.
Right. If you look back into the match itself, obviously Shoaib Maksud to begin with, obviously 35 balls, 65 runs, not out. I think one of the major key players in terms of the performance, and he was also termed as the player of the tournament. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of eyes would have been on Rizwan, obviously, being captain, being the top order batsman, and also, being one of the leading run scorers of the tournament. So I think a lot was riding on Mohammad Rizwan to sort of say, all right, okay, he's going to get, a 50, 60 here, as he has done throughout the tournament. However, I think what Maksud has also shown throughout this tournament, he's kind of gone under the radar, but I think he's also finished with either the third or fourth highest number of runs in this tournament, which is incredible. And, added to the fact that he was, announced for Pakistan squad to the England tour, I think it gave him an extra boost. So it was an incredible innings by Maksud himself, also helped by Riley Rousseau, which was a phenomenal display as well. So those middle overs really killed the game for Peshawar.
Right. And I think in terms of, I think our squad is also ready in terms of, the next tour, obviously, to England. But the interesting thing is that as we know, things are changing, and all the teams that are working are basically preparing themselves, all the players are preparing themselves for the T20 World Cup. And there's a major possibility, because it's still under discussion, that it may move to Abu Dhabi. So I think this PSL 6 would surely be that learning phase for all our key players.
Yeah, you know what? This is a discussion I've also had with a few of my friends and colleagues about if the World T20 is to be held in the UAE, should Pakistan take what we've seen from this leg of the PSL forward? Now, can Maksud has done obviously well. Players like Dahani, obviously he wasn't named in the T20 squad, he's in the Test squad, but I think, if he's shown what he can do on these pitches, if the UAE pitches are just as they were for this PSL for the World T20, players like Dahani could do really well as well. And I think every country will have one eye on the UAE, because It seems to me, with only a few months to go, with all the logistical issues and also, movement of players and broadcast equipment, I think it looks likely that it will be the UAE, but I can't say for certain. But I think everyone will have one keen eye on playing in
Because
the UAE.
Tanzil, from what I've heard, obviously the corona situation that actually was still on back in India as well in terms of IPO. Now they've actually planned on moving it to Abu Dhabi as well. So I think it's surely going to be that one major playground for all the team and all the key players to master their skills while being there. From what I see right now, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, look, it's a brilliant thing for all the teams involved if the World T20 was to happen in UAE because of the amount of players that play in the IPL. India, favoured India greatly as well because majority of their players will be playing in the IPL who will be in that squad for the World T20, and also, many players from other countries like the West Indies. You're looking at South Africa and even some New Zealand boys will be there. So I think it probably pays off for the IPL to happen in UAE and then the World T20 to happen in UAE, for everyone to sort of get used to the situation, get used to the sort of grounds. And I think it could make for a very interesting tournament, given what we've seen in the PSL second leg.
Absolutely. If we go back into the first leg of PSL, obviously in Pakistan, when the momentum started to take charge. Do you remember the times that the table was instantaneously opposite? I think all the key players, all the teams that were on the upper side of the table, and eventually when they came to the second leg, things changed. Besides Quetta Gladiators, because I think from the very start, they just could not get that leadership. Other than that, I think all the teams really, really worked hard. I even think Islamabad United had a lot of potential to be out there, maybe at least get to the final. But I think things were very, very hard for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, Lahore obviously top of their game. Karachi were top of their game. Multan had lost, I think, 3 or 4 in a row. Then you had, Islamabad were looking very strong as well. It is just an amazing contrast between the Pakistan leg and the UAE leg. How, like you said, the table literally flipped around.
Right.
Apart from Quetta, unfortunately for them. And it was amazing to see. Look, I remember I said this to you last time I was here, that statistically Lahore were the worst team in the UAE. They had the lowest win percentage, and it showed. Last year they reached the final. This year in Pakistan, they've almost finished the group stage, near enough the top. They get to UAE, they have a few good games, and then they lost their way. So unfortunately for them, the UAE leg wasn't that great. But it also goes down to the fact that the other teams managed to find, one, a system that worked for them, and two, they're perfect playing 11s. And this is where teams like Peshawar and Multan started to shine.
Right, and one thing that I would also want to ask you, Tanzil, because I was going through this news yesterday in terms of PSL situation, that Haider Ali was apparently told not to join the squad because of the fact that there were some biosecure protocols of COVID that were really broken. And not only him, there was another player as well. So do you have any take on that? Because right now, from what we're told, Haider Ali may not be going to not only, he may manage not to play the PSL's final match. Not only that, he may not be going further ahead to England.
Yeah, I think he's already been kicked out from the England squad. If I know correctly, I know Maqsood has definitely been named in his place, so I'm sure he's gone there. And look, it's unfortunate. Okay, he hasn't had the greatest tournament, unfortunately for Haider. A lot of potential, and there was a lot riding on him. He came in as one of, a very, very young, exciting talent. One was hoping that he could sort out Pakistan's middle order problems. However, unfortunately for him, this PSL hasn't gone the way that he was hoping. So there was that dip in performance. On top of the fact now that he, got kicked out of the final and now he's been kicked out of the Pakistan squad. Look, he's very young though. He's got a long career ahead of him. If, he can manage to keep his head on, keep his head high. Right. He just needs to, just focus on about, his cricket more. I think it'd be good for him to say, go back to the first class game, get some runs under his belt and come back stronger. He's got many years to do it, luckily for him on this side.
Yeah, absolutely, Tanzil. You are absolutely right in terms of Haider Ali. There's a lot of potential, but he surely needs that focus. But anyways, Tanzil, thank you so much for being a part of the show and discussing the world of cricket with us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So was Tanzil, and yes, he gave his in-depth analysis. And yes, as discussed, as I was mentioning, not to forget the Peshawar Zalmis, 2 players who were actually told to be suspended from the team. They were Haider Ali and Umaid Asif. which surely is going to be a very strong case in terms of breaking that biosecure bubble. And because of this biosecure bubble, the major issue is Heather Ali is now off the squad. That squad has to go to England, and not only England, to the West Indies as well. Anyways, guys, we'll take a quick break. Once we come back, there's more news coming up your way from the world of sports. See you guys after the break. And yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, before the break, we were discussing the world of PSL. Not to forget, we are now discussing the world of NBA. And in terms of NBA, yes, it was the Game 3 of the conference finals between LA Clippers and Phoenix Suns. And the interesting part about this match is because this was the third game, and it was a really, really tricky game for, obviously, Clippers to begin with, because obviously they were losing previously they've lost 2 games. But anyways, to discuss the in-depth analysis of the third game that they managed to win against the Suns, we have with us Adam all the way from US. Adam, welcome to the show.
It's always a pleasure. Happy to be on. Thank you very much.
Great. So, Adam, I'll talk about this Game 3 to begin with. The Clippers have had a very tough time in terms of the past 2 games, but this game, surely they just wanted to make their point that, we're still out there for the big day. So how do you see this game? Obviously, them managing score 106 to 92, winning against the Suns.
The first things that come to mind for me are the Los Angeles Clippers have not started any series well in the playoffs. They went down 2-0 against the Dallas Mavericks, and they were looking a little dead in the water, and then they came back with vengeance. And then in the next round, they once again go down 2-0 against the Utah Jazz, which is a team I thought had a really good chance to come out of the West. So when the Clippers beat the Jazz and they solved that riddle and they were able to figure out how to take away the 3-point shooting, especially doing that without Kawhi Leonard, it showed just how tough of a team they are. And then they go into this game against Phoenix, going down in that same familiar 2-0 hole. I thought this was going to be different because Chris Paul was going to return, and even though he hasn't played in this series yet, that's one of the greatest floor generals in the history of basketball and a stabilizing presence for their offense. However, I got to give credit to the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, Tyronn Lue. It seems like his teams just never, ever have any quit in them. And you can think back to the 2016 finals when they were the first team ever, when he was coaching LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot of people talk about LeBron in that series, and rightfully so, but Ty Lue was the coach of that team that went back from 3-1, and it had never been done before. And so you're starting to see a trend with the mental toughness of his teams. And to be doing this without Kawhi Leonard is extremely impressive. And when you look at last night's games, defensively, they were just so great at home. Devin Booker and Chris Paul combined for 25% from the field, which is astounding, especially when you look at the way Chris Paul came out with 40-plus in Game 1. Chris Paul, still has his effect. He still had 12 assists, but excellent defense, and that's such a calling card for this Clippers team when they're playing their best basketball. And, the Suns in the playoffs are averaging 110 points per game. And so they were held 18 points under their average by an incredible Clippers defense. And the final thing I want to add to answer your question is we kind of forgot as basketball fans just how crazy a home court advantage can be. Because in the playoffs, that's such a deciding factor. That's why you fight so hard all regular season to get that advantage. And we didn't have that last year when all the games were in Disney World. And so the Clippers have been fantastic. They lost the home games against Dallas, but they've truly been a different team at home as of late, and it's been a difference maker.
That's probably one of the major things I earlier discussed as well with one of our guests, and this was exactly what I was told, that once they get to their home, they will make their comeback in a way. And as you said, seems more like a trend to me. And if we look back into Game 1 and Game 2, if we talk about them, to be very honest, The last game was pretty much close when the Suns were at 104 and the Clippers were at 103. And if you go back to game one, obviously the Suns were 120, the Clippers were 114. But right now, if you look at the game plan and the situation, 106 made their mark. Make sure Suns do not score enough. The Suns only had 92 points. So that's substantially a good lead in terms of the third game. And I think this would surely give them more of the edge to take the lead forward ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly going to see how this goes. I think that there is a little bit of rust to come off with Chris Paul. It's just not characteristic of him. 5 of 19 from the field. And Devin Booker, you know, wearing the Rip Hamilton face mask, 5 of 21. So I wonder if, you know, the smashed nose was bothering him, because it just wasn't characteristic of him at all. And so it is very interesting. And when you look at the box score from that game, you know, Reggie Jackson once again puts on a show. And I don't think anyone thought, maybe Reggie Jackson was the only one who thought that Reggie Jackson was going to be this good in the playoffs, but he has really been their second best player. And they've just found people to step up. And so they clearly have a lot of belief in themselves. And, you know, the lockdown defense is crucial. I just don't know how much they're going to be able to keep that up, because, as I mentioned, the Suns do score 109 points per game. You know, they normally shoot 37% from three. Right. And, you know, obviously not at all the case when you're going against the Clippers. It's going to be much harder. They did do a good job from downtown last night, but it's going to be a chess match. And so if I had to make a prediction, I would say maybe the Clippers do even this one up, but then it's going to shift back to Phoenix, and all bets are off. Who knows? Maybe every game in the series is won by the home team. Right. We're certainly going to find out. But look for Chris Paul to start to look a little bit more efficient, and expect him and Booker both to shoot a lot better. I don't think we're going to have another game that's this lopsided. And even when you look at that third quarter, the Suns came out really aggressive, but the Clippers were able to weather the storm.
Yes, absolutely. I was watching that in the third quarter. They managed to score 34 points, whereas the Phoenix Suns scored only 21. But I think to start off with, if we look back, and obviously if we talk about the first half of the game, LA Clippers scored 29 points in the first quarter and then 17 points in the second quarter. They were surely pretty close at the very start with the Suns, but instantaneous jump and, you know, making their mark, getting into the aggressive side while defending as well. Because if we look back in the third quarter, Phoenix Sun only managed to score 21 points, whereas the Clippers scored 34 points. So I think they do have a strategy. Besides the defensive side, they know when to get on the offense side.
Yeah, definitely. I think I got a little mixed up. Yeah, the Phoenix Suns had a great second quarter, winning the second quarter 27-17. Right. But that's all halftime adjustments. And when you look at the Clippers' playoff run so far, it's been crucial. The adjustments they've had to make game to game to get back in series, or to go into the break and come out a better team, because Phoenix was the favorite in that game. And they've kind of been the favorite all series. And here in the United States, it's a huge trend right now, this whole Suns and 4 trend. I don't know if you saw the altercation at the Denver Nuggets game with the fist fight that happened in the stands, but everyone's doing this whole Suns and 4 thing. And that's definitely not going to happen now. You know, obviously this one goes to at least 5, but right. On my podcast, Hoops Stradamus, our correspondent Gabriel Wilkins actually predicted that the Clippers win this series in 7. And I think it could go either way, but I do think it'll take a full 7 games, and it will be a chess match throughout. And right now, even though the Suns are up in the series, I'm kind of leaning towards agreeing with Gabriel, because right.
I would also
starting to figure.
I would also want to have a quick word with you in terms of Milwaukee Bucks, obviously them facing Atlanta Hawks. In terms of Milwaukee Bucks, to be very honest, even though this was the first game they managed to lose against the Atlanta Hawks, but I still see a lot of spark in them in terms of their gelling capability and performing together as a team, and obviously not to forget Giannis performance always on spot. So how do you see, do you think they will have any positives in the upcoming games for them?
You know, I was shocked. I was shocked that the Hawks took game one, and Trae Young is on this Allen Iverson type role, just carrying this team. He's got a lot of help. They can spread you out. They can hit a bunch of threes. John Collins and Clint Capella are two really important big men in that series. And when you look at it, though, on paper, it should be all Milwaukee. You know, they have been a team that's been on kind of the doorstep of the NBA Finals last few seasons as far as expectations go. Trae Young had such a bad game 7 in the previous series against the 76ers, but he was there when it counted. And then once again, he came up with the big shots when it counted. He's such a volume shooter. It's going to cause a lot of problems. I think that the Bucks really need to be a little bit more disciplined defensively. There was a particular sequence in the third quarter where there was a screen set by, who was it? Someone on the Hawks. Yeah, John Collins sets a screen on Drew Holiday, and Holiday is stuck on the other side of this, and Bobby Portis is way out towards the free throw line, and it fails to close out on Trae Young, who does this little shimmy, has all the time in the world to line up the three-point shot. And so the team defense needs to be better. The communication needs to be better. Right. And frankly, I'm a little shocked at how discombobulated the Bucks have looked at times in these super important moments, because they had every right to win that game. Right. And the Hawks went and took it just as much as the Bucks squandered it. But I did feel like the Bucks kind of squandered that a little bit. And that was surprising when you have a game when Giannis is so efficient, 14 of 25. He had his 9 assists, 12 rebounds, 34 points. And Drew Holiday was pretty good on both ends as he used.
I'm still looking at the stats for now. And to be very honest, I'm still looking at the upcoming game 2 of Bucks versus Hawks, and would surely want to talk more about it in the future with you, Adam. Thank you so much for giving us the in-depth analysis from the world of NBA.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. That was Adam, and obviously he did add in some knowledge with regards to obviously Clippers versus Suns, and obviously now the Suns have actually initially managed to win 2 of the games, and now the lead is 2-1 because the LA Clippers have finally made a comeback. And yes, the Bucks have lost 1 game, but let's see how it goes for them in the long run. And because there's another game lined up for today, do watch it. It's going to be super interesting. Anyways, I'll jump into the world of tennis just to give you guys more update. Talking about Andy Murray, he makes a welcome comeback to Wimbledon singles. And Andy Murray will be taking part in the singles this year. Not to forget, we've always talked about this, he had been going through a rough patch this year because of his groin injury that has continued for a very long time. He's been on the road to recovery, but yes, he's making a comeback. That's one thing that we're looking at for sure. And the last he played was mixed doubles, was with Serena Williams back in 2019. So it's an interesting take in terms of understanding how things are developing for him. But anyways, not to forget, if we talk about Roger Federer, yes, Roger Federer is surely going to be in the game. Nadal is going to be in the game, and Djokovic would be in the game. We're talking about Wimbledon, so obviously it's one of the biggest tournaments when it comes to the world of tennis. So we're all looking forward to all of this, and let's hope Andy Murray's recovery take him to where he wants to be, because obviously he has not been out there for a while to represent himself, because of the fact he tried to play in the last tournament as well, but he still had that injury. And I hope, and we all hope, that his recovery is on spot. But anyways, this was from the world of tennis. I will quickly jump into the world of Formula One. Yes, talking about Lewis Hamilton, he has started negotiations with Mercedes over a new contract. And Hamilton actually won 3 out of 7 races for Mercedes this season. So he's definitely a success for them, and hopefully he will be coming out with a better contract for him. Hamilton joined the Mercedes back in 2013 and has gone to enjoy the unprecedented success. So I'm sure every year he would definitely be getting a stronger and a stronger contract. Not only this, Hamilton fell 12 points behind the title rival Verstappen in the championship, which is surely the French Grand Prix that we were talking about. But yet again, obviously they're renewing the contract. Let's hope things go well for them. Anyways, guys, this is pretty much it from the world of sport. If you guys want to reach out to us, you can on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. Till then, take good care of yourself, and bye-bye.